friends. I'm so excited to have Jess Honegger here on the Freedom Challenge because I have watched you from afar and we've been friends up close, let's be honest, for the last few years. But just to see you shine and to see you lead so well, just kind of this whole group of like little army of women, right? Ambassadors around the world and artisans that are making the most beautiful jewelry. And so she's the founder of New Day Collection, for those of you who don't know. But you have like just a remarkable journey and story that you've even just now put in a book that is just now coming out. So I just want to make sure they know who you are, if they don't already, which they probably do. But beyond that, there's something about you that just is radiant. And I remember, do you remember the first If lead where we had our prayer moment on the front?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember?
Oh, my God.
It was like we turned full on Pentecostal.
Oh, yes, we
while
did.
Everyone else
You're
was
my
like,
Pentecostal
what is
buddy.
happening? We were like on our faces, and you just started declaring, and you were going after some stuff. And I was like, she is my spirit animal. And it was like the Spirit sealed something in us. And I saw that in you. I saw this like mama bear in you that was just like, I'm not going down without a fight.
Oh, that's right.
And I just and you were praying even then for boldness, and for permission to just step into this, like what even sometimes is seen as a corporate thing, but full of faith.
Yes.
And that's what I see in you.
Yes.
And so the question I'm going to pose to you, just one question. There's not really any rules to this beyond like one question, and then it can kind of guardrail from there.
Okay.
I would love for you to share with them, what does freedom mean to you?
Yeah. I think for me, my definition of freedom is really one of it's being fully surrendered to God and knowing that Jesus, no matter what happens in my life, I get Jesus in the end.
Yes. He's the prize, right?
He's the prize.
Yeah.
He holds the outcome. And I think that the more I've come to realize that he holds the outcome, whatever that is, the more I have been able to just be me. So I think freedom, a lot of that is just comes from me being me. And I think I used to define surrender as being more about one path of obedience. Like I needed to die for Jesus as a martyr in Saudi Arabia. That is how I defined.
That was your lot.
That was it.
Yeah.
Then that would give me my big crown in heaven and Jesus' approval.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I love like earrings and I like showing my hair off. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
so
you got it. So why not, right?
But I think, we think surrender is about just choosing like the ultimate thing that would be the most horrible thing for us.
Right.
But what if surrender is actually taking who God made us to be and then just offering that?
Yeah.
Becoming a living sacrifice for him.
And you do, because wouldn't it be God, right? To the destiny he planted in you in the womb. When you live that out, brings the greatest joy.
Yes.
And the greatest fruit.
Yes.
And like a revived heart.
Yes.
And a freedom that's magnetic.
That's right.
I mean, that's what he wants.
That's right.
And even when Paul was in chains, he's still saying, and just pray for more boldness for me,
Yeah.
Because he knew that was part of the destiny that God had for him until the final breath. And there was joy. I mean, he kept talking about joy and trials in prison. So it's like it's really not even contingent on like the setting or the circumstances of it. It's like, no, this is what God appointed, and I'm in
internal. It's our internal. Because I look back to when I defined my obedience as becoming a martyr in Saudi Arabia, and I think that there was so much of that time, and I would never take any of it back because God has not wasted any of my journey. I ended up moving to an unreached people group in Latin America, and then I ended up coming back, and I thought, well, I needed to become a teacher because that's really what it looks like to help the poor, and I got my master's in education. So this is crazy. I'm now the CEO of a fashion brand. So I wouldn't change any of
that. Which is like saying that, CEO of a fashion brand, I feel is like a drop in the bucket of like the fullness of what you actually do, right? Like that's the label, like that's what it is.
Right.
Essentially in like 3 words. But like what all that experience has transpired to be in people's lives.
Right. So I look back and I think like, okay, I made a lot of choices that might not have been out of freedom, and God doesn't waste anything, but I look back and I think, what would have it looked like to have walked in joy, and what would it have looked like for me to embrace like the fullness of who God made me to be, and then be that in the world. And,
So was there a season you feel like you weren't?
Yeah.
When you say what would that means in that season you weren't feeling that?
I think that when I moved to Latin America, I mean, I loved it, and I loved Latin America, but there was still a sense of I'm doing the supposed to thing, right? I'm doing the whole move to the unreached people group thing. And then after becoming a mom, that was a real struggle for me, because I grew up with a stay-at-home mom who's amazing, who would like choose playing with dolls any day of the week. I mean, she's like made for that.
Rock star.
But I wasn't made for that, but I thought, okay, well, now the path is this. So I think I did define success and obedience in such a narrow way for so long, and then I felt like I wasn't on that path of obedience, and so then that robbed a lot of my joy. And so I think I've learned that, like, you know, as long as I'm like literally tripping on the heels of Jesus, he is going to take me on a windy, windy path.
I love it.
And it's not going to be following my mom or following whoever.
So good.
Right? It's going to be following him. And for me, it's been not being a stay-at-home mom. It's, you know, working full-time and running a company and, you know, helping women feel beautiful in jewelry and all of these things. And now I'm finally having fun doing it because I've expanded that definition of surrender.
Amen.
The surrender is just offering who I am, my gifts, my passions. It's just offering it up to him and say, use me. And it might all fall apart, and that's okay too, because I get Jesus in the end.
Yeah,
and
this
so
is such
freedom.
a good word, especially for 20-somethings, I think, that are like, I just want to nail my calling, and I don't want to waste any time. I want to know it now. And I'm like, okay, let's relax. Because the fullness of what he's destined you for is already there. It's already in there. And sometimes we think we got to like grasp for something. It's like, no, just unlayer the things that have held you back from being free to be who you already are, which is why I chose that subtitle, because I felt like it's like God has already planted in you everything that you're going to need, that he's going to appoint you for. And you're going to need him. He wouldn't call you to something that he has to be, that he's not going to be front and center.
But he's working against. I love this quote that I read actually in my early 20s, and it said, "We keep crying out to know the will of God without realizing his very will is knitted into the fabric of our being." And so I think we spend so much time thinking that surrender is dying to ourselves, dying to our gifts, our passions, our dreams. But what if surrender is like actually knowing ourselves and then offering those things in surrender to him?
You know what I have found surrender to mean for me in my life has been dying to my plan. Dying to my timing, dying to my strategy, dying to what I ordain on how it rolls out. Because God's very clear, like, all your days are written in my book before one of them comes to no. So he's basically going, I've got this thing. I see it. I see what you can't see. I know what I've knit in you, and I'm going to give you gifts that you're going to come alive in when you use them. And that gives me delight. But it might not look the way that you thought, right? You might trip along the way because it's going to humble you and keep you close. And there are some things I think that he calls us to, and he holds them off for a reason, because he's like, I want your whole heart. I want your whole heart and your whole dependence on me, so that I then empower your work and I get the glory. I mean, it is all about his glory, right? Ultimately, it's not for our, like, strictly for just us to suffer and to struggle. It's like, no, that he may be glorified in every step. And that has taught me so much about patience, about perseverance, about waiting. Like, I love, like, the chapter Free to Wait was so deep to me, because I'm like, sometimes we were just in a season of waiting because there's a pruning and a refining that's happening for more joy to be full around the bend. And I think that's part of the promise.
It is part of the promise, for the glory of God, for the good of others, being free.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for doing what you do. You guys, Noonday Collection, I'm going to link to it and everything, but I love your heart. I love your leadership. I love how you're raising up even another generation of leaders. So you're amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you.